Hi, I'm Joanne Banko, author, designer, and sewing educator. Today I have a great project for you for turning a pashmina scarf into a trendy little topper. Perfect for traveling around town or out of town. You'll love this little piece. Let me show you how easy it is to make. First of all, you're going to start with a plain pashmina. Could have a jacquard print to it. Some pashminas have a hemmed edge. If you look at my black and red one here, it's got a hemmed edge. If you look over at the bright orange one, that's just finished with a woven edge. So the main thing you need to do when you start is determine the right side and the wrong side. So obviously if it has a hem, that hem is turned to the wrong side. If it doesn't, check where the label is, because the label will be attached to the scarf where the wrong side is. Okay? Now, wait till you see how easy and fun this is to make. You'll be wearing this in no time at all. We're going to take the pashmina, we're going to lay it perfectly flat, and then we're going to mark the center. And I've got the right side of the pashmina facing up. So I just use pins. You don't have to be really fussy with this because it's kind of one of those garments that when you wear it, it's going to flow. If you take a look at the one on the dress form, you could see it's kind of a cross between a jacket and a cape. I just like to call it a topper, but just has a little anchoring where your arms would go through, but it's still open and unrestricted. Perfect for throwing on if you're hopping in the car, hopping on a plane, just about anywhere you could think of to dress up some of your outfits. All right, so we've got the pashmina all folded. I've got folded towards the center, and then the next thing I'm going to do is form the lapels. So I'm going to turn this edge back at a 45-degree angle. And again, you don't have to be too fussy, but I will use a measuring tool for this so that it's even on both sides, and I want it to be 4 inches. And I'm just going to put some pins in here to hold that in place. Again, just a few. This is going to be really easy stitching. And then I'm going to flip this one, make it to match. There we go. Again, once this is on, you won't notice if you're off just a little bit here and there. So don't be too fussy with that. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the scissors and I'm going to split both of the folds on the side. So we'll just take one here, and again, just smooth it out. If you want to put pins along the edge, you can do that. That'll help kind of hold it in place. You want to be pretty neat, and I'll tell you, first of all, this is the kind of project that you want to do all in one fell swoop. And what I mean by that is you don't want to cut this out and then kind of like throw it into a ball and let it lay around for a while, because when you get back to it, it's probably going to be a little bit messier. So you want to keep those edges from raveling too excessively. Of course, you could use a serger. If you have a serger, you could clean finish these raw edges, and that would also keep those ravels from happening. All right, I'm ready to stitch my lapels. So I'm going to grab just this 1/2. I'm going to move over to the machine, and I'm going to get this machine set up with a walking foot. Now, a walking foot is one of my favorite feet. Very often we think of this foot as a quilting foot because it helps evenly feed the quilt layers, but it helps evenly feed all kinds of tricky layers. So now I'm just going to select a straight stitch. And I normally don't like to back stitch on something like this, so I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. I'm going to lengthen that stitch just a little bit, and I'm just going to line up my foot right along that lapel. Lower the presser foot. Obviously, I'm using thread that is in contrast to this fabric. You would want to use thread that matches or blends. And when you take a look at that pashmina, the one that's on the dress form, you see it's very multicolored. So just select a thread that is a prominent color in the mix of that pashmina. I'm just going to pivot around, and I'm going to lower the foot again. And just, there we go. My lapel is stitched. All right, I'm going to bring that needle up, take this out of the machine, and let me explain just another second here why I talked about not back stitching. Again, this fabric is soft, and it kind of could easily pucker up if we're back stitching. So what I like to do in this case is something that you normally don't need to do for regular seams, but in this case it works really well. I will pull the bobbin thread on the bobbin side, and then pull the little loop of the needle thread, and I would actually tie this by hand, tie it into about 3 knots, and then if you want to take a hand needle, you can bury the thread tails in and you won't even know where that's at. So once both of those lapels are done, it's time to take your pashmina and put right sides together. So I've already done that. Again, it's going to look just like it did when it was laid on the table, but what we're going to do now, right sides together, we're going to sew a shoulder seam. So right there, if you take a look at this, there's my lapel, there's my 2 raw edges from where I cut the fold, and I'm going to simply sew a 1/2 inch for a shoulder seam. So I'm just going to put that on the machine so that you can see what I did. When I sewed that seam, I selected my laser and I used my seam gauge. This is a really good trick if you have a laser on the machine. And I'm going to move the laser to the 1/2 inch. If you could see, I've got my, hopefully you can see that here, I've got my 1/2 inch here where the laser is. Bump that over just a little bit more. Then I take my width key and I move my needle position so that it lines up directly. So if you look on the screen of the machine, you'll see my red line and my blue line are right on top of each other. What that would do is give me my stitching line right at the point where I set that laser. So again, that seam's already stitched, but I just want to show you how we would do that. So both of my side seams are, both of my shoulder seams rather, are stitched already. And I've only got a couple more steps and this thing's going to be finished. So the next step would be to hem those side edges. So remember they were raw. And what I've done is I went over to my iron here. I'll show you, I've already pressed it, but I'll show you how I did it. And I love to use one of these metal gauges so I can find where my 1 inch is and then simply press and make that a crease. So now I'm ready to hem that edge. And again, you could see that this is a little bit ravelly. So you're going to snip a little bit as you go along. I'm going to fold that so that I'm folding my raw edge into the fold that I pressed. Turn. You could pin if you like. Usually I don't find that to be necessary because I just finger it as I go along. And you can see once again, I'm not going to backstitch on this. I'm going to do the same thing I did on those lapel areas. You can see I'm going to go all along this edge, fold that in, get rid of those little fuzzies as I go along. And what I'd like you to see is how smooth and even this is. So I'm not going to bother stitching that whole side. I've got one sewn already on the other side, but let me show you how smooth and even that is. And you can see how soft this fabric is. So once those sides are hemmed, again, I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to show you my side that's already finished. Get this little floppy thing to lay flat here. My shoulder seam is here. My lapel is here. My hemmed edges are along the side. I only have 2 more stitches to do. I would just flatten this out. I would then take a ruler and I would measure 12 inches down from the shoulder. And I'm just going to tack, I'm going to guess here where that 12 inches is, but I'm going to tack that just along that edge there. Now, I don't want to bother pulling those threads here, so I'm going to do another little trick when we don't want to backstitch, and that is simply twirl it around. Got lots of messy stuff here, so hopefully you can see that, and just stitch over that a couple times. All anchored. Okay? So again, I use matching thread, and I've blended all that in, and now let me run over to the mannequin and show you the finished product so you can see what it looks like. Here we have our shoulder seams, here we have our lapels, and then here we have these side seams stitched, anchored here. You have a beautiful topper you can take anywhere. Again, wear it around town, wear it out of town. It's the perfect accessory. Be sure to visit the website. We've got all the step-by-step instructions for you so you can make your own beautiful topper from a great looking pashmina scarf.